picture this. You're traveling.
Always stressful.
Right. Maybe you're navigating a bustling, noisy airport terminal in Johannesburg, dodging luggage carts and just trying to find your gate.
Mm.
Or maybe you're finally blissfully settling into a hotel room in Cape Town after a grueling 12-hour day of meetings. You reach into your pocket, you pull out your smartphone to check a message, and your heart just sinks.
The battery icon.
Yes. It's glowing that angry, menacing red. You are at exactly 1%, and then, right when you think your phone is going to die and leave you completely disconnected, you spot it.
A lifesaver.
Like mirage in the desert. There is a public USB charging station. Maybe it's built right into the seating area at the airport lounge, or seamlessly integrated into the base of that sleek hotel nightstand lamp.
And you just happen to have your cable on you.
Exactly. It's right there in your carry-on bag. So you plug it in, breathe a massive sigh of relief, and watch the battery percentage tick back up. 2%, 3%. But what if I told you that this little everyday moment of convenience might actually be a highly coordinated trap?
Yeah, it's a scenario that plays out thousands upon thousands of times a day for travelers all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are so completely reliant on our devices for everything. I mean, from boarding passes to banking. A dead battery feels like a genuine immediate crisis.
It really does.
And in that moment of panic, we let our guard down.
Yeah.
Cybercriminals are absolutely counting on that desperation.
Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us. Today, we are exploring an incredibly eye-opening topic based on insights from Da Vinci Forensics.
Specifically detailing a rising cyber threat right now in South Africa.
Right, something known as juice jacking. It was highlighted by their CEO, Sharon Knowles. And, I mean, it sounds like it belongs in a high-tech spy thriller.
But it's happening right out in the open, in the mundane places we visit every day.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to equip you with the knowledge you need. We'll quickly explain the mechanics of what juice jacking actually is, but our absolute main focus.
The really actionable part.
Yes, giving you the top 3 insider tactics to prevent it when you're out in public spaces. And after we lock down your defense, we'll walk through the exact step-by-step performance indicators you need to look for if you suspect your smartphone might have already been compromised.
Sounds like a solid plan.
Okay, let's unpack this. I hear the term juice jacking, and I immediately think of some futuristic hacker movie. What exactly are we dealing with here?
To put it in the simplest terms, juice jacking is the malicious use of public USB ports to secretly hijack your device.
So while it's just sitting there.
Yeah, sitting there happily charging, seemingly doing absolutely nothing else, but malicious software is actively being loaded onto it behind the scenes. The goal is to monitor your digital activity, harvest your passwords, and steal your private data.
Wow. Has this always been a thing? Because I feel like I'm just starting to hear about it more frequently now, especially around travel hubs.
That's a great question. It's
Yeah.
actually not a newly invented concept at all. The method has been around for quite a while.
Okay.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of cybersecurity, the threat landscape has shifted dramatically in recent years. Historically, the infrastructure required to pull off a juice-jacking attack was, well, prohibitively expensive.
Hard to build.
Extremely. Highly complex to manage. It required a very specific, high level of technical sophistication. But the crucial update we are seeing now is that the barrier to entry has completely plummeted.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the tools required to execute this kind of attack have become incredibly cheap to acquire and shockingly easy to use.
So it's no longer just state-sponsored hackers or criminal masterminds doing this.
Not at all.
The average cybercriminal can now just buy the gear online, set up a trap, and start vacuuming up personal data from unsuspecting travelers.
Precisely. The democratization of hacking tools means the threat is exponentially more widespread than it was even 5 years ago.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the actual trap itself, because I've honestly never thought deeply about the inside of my charging cable.
Most people haven't.
When I'm at home and I plug my phone into the wall in my kitchen, what is actually happening inside that little white wire?
Think of your charging cable, whether it's an Apple Lightning cable or a USB-C for an Android, like a multi-lane highway.
Okay, multi-lane highway.
The engineers who design these cables give them a dual purpose. Inside that tiny metal connector, there are specific microscopic pins dedicated solely to transferring electrical power to charge your battery.
Right.
But right next to them, there are completely separate pins dedicated solely to transferring data.
Ah, okay. So when I'm just plugged into the wall at my house getting ready for bed, what are those data pins doing? Are they just sitting there unused?
Exactly. At home, when you use a standard wall plug, it's a one-way street of electricity. The power pins are doing all the work, and the data pins are essentially asleep.
Got it.
However, when you take that exact same cable and plug it into a public USB port that has been secretly hijacked by a bad actor
The dynamic changes.
entirely, that public port is maliciously configured to engage both sets of pins simultaneously.
So the port is tricking my phone. It allows the electricity to flow, my screen lights up, I see the little lightning bolt icon, and I suspect absolutely nothing is wrong.
Right, you just think you're getting a charge.
But behind the scenes, the hacker has essentially opened up the data highway.
That is exactly what happens. They use that open data lane to push what cybersecurity experts call malicious payloads directly onto your device.
What does a payload actually look like in this context? Because that sounds pretty ominous.
Think of a payload as a digital burglar's toolkit. Once they have access through the data pins, they drop this toolkit inside your phone.
To do what?
It could be standard malware designed to corrupt files, or, very commonly in these attacks, something called a keylogger.
Wait, does a keylogger mean what I think it means? Can they literally see what I am typing?
Every single letter. A keylogger is a program that silently records every keystroke you make on your digital keyboard.
Oh, wow.
So imagine you are sitting at the airport gate, your phone is plugged into the kiosk, and you decide to quickly log into your bank app to check your balance. Or you send a highly confidential work email.
And it sees all of that.
It records your username, your password, the contents of the email, your private text messages to your family. It captures all of it and funnels it straight back to the criminal. It gives them a direct, unfiltered pipeline to your entire digital life.
That is terrifying. It's a complete and utter breach of privacy, and I know the Da Vinci forensics team uses an analogy for this that just completely stopped me in my tracks.
Yes, the stranger's laptop analogy.
That's the one.
What's fascinating here is it really forces you to reframe how you look at a USB port. They point out that using a public USB charging port is technically and fundamentally the exact same thing as walking up to a total stranger, taking your unlocked smartphone and plugging it directly into their laptop.
I want to just sit with that for a second because that is profound.
It changes your perspective, right?
Completely. If I was sitting in a hotel lobby waiting to check in, and a guy sitting next to me opened up his laptop and said, "Hey, I see your phone is dying. Do you want to plug it into my computer to get some juice?"
Yeah, you'd run.
I would look at him like he was crazy. I would never, ever do that. It sounds inherently reckless and dangerous.
No one would. All of our internal alarm bells would go off immediately.
But because that exact same USB port is embedded into a nicely polished piece of wooden hotel furniture or a sleek branded charging kiosk at the airport, we just inherently trust it.
Exactly.
We completely forget that there is a hidden computer or at least a compromised malicious data storage device sitting right behind that innocent-looking piece of plastic.
We fall victim to the illusion of safety. Cybercriminals are brilliantly weaponizing our basic human need for convenience. We rely so heavily on our smartphones for digital boarding passes, ride-sharing apps, navigation, staying in touch with colleagues.
Yeah, you literally can't travel without one anymore.
Right. And when we are in places like cyber cafes, businesses where we have to wait for service, or transit hubs, the immediate stress of needing a functioning phone completely overrides our normal security instincts. We trade our digital safety for a few percentage points of battery life.
Which brings us to the most important part of this discussion for you, the listener. If you are stuck in an airport terminal in Joburg or sitting in a cafe in Cape Town and your battery is in the red, how do we outsmart this?
This is where we get proactive.
Knowles highlights as a surprisingly simple first defense. And I love this because it's all about controlling your own hardware ecosystem.
Method 1 is arguably the most straightforward. Bring your own hardware. Whenever you are traveling, commuting, or even just going about your daily routine where you might realistically need a charge, you must travel with your own cable and your own dedicated charger block.
The actual physical plug that goes into the wall.
Yes, the block itself. You absolutely cannot rely on finding a loose public cable, and you certainly cannot rely on a naked public USB port.
It sounds basic, but it really is about fundamentally changing our packing habits. I know I am guilty of this. I often just throw a loose USB-C cable into my backpack because it's small, it bends easily, and it's convenient. I always just assume I'll find a USB slot in a wall somewhere.
And that's exactly the habit they rely on.
Right, but using your own block completely shifts the power dynamic, which brings us directly to method 2, stick to the wall.
This is where we lean into the physical architecture of electricity. If you're in the public space, the safest connection you can possibly make is bypassing the USB ports entirely and plugging your personal charger block directly into a standard power outlet.
You mean just a traditional wall socket, the old school ones with the 2 or 3 prongs that deliver raw electricity for a lamp or a vacuum cleaner?
Precisely. Think about the physics of a standard power outlet. It physically lacks the architecture to transfer data.
Because it's just raw power.
Right, it's a dumb connection. It only provides alternating electrical current. There are no data pins inside a wall socket. So if you ignore the modern convenient USB slots built into the armrest of the airport seating and instead reach down toward the floor and plug your own personal charger block into a standard old-fashioned wall outlet, you have completely eliminated the risk of juice jacking.
It's just physically impossible at that point.
Exactly. You are dictating exactly how the power enters your device on your terms.
I love that. You are taking back control. It's a physical air gap against hackers. But let's play out a realistic scenario here. Sometimes you are truly stuck.
It happens to the best of us.
Maybe you were rushing and you forgot your charger block on the hotel nightstand. Or maybe you're at a dedicated charging station where the only option available is a naked USB port, and your phone is literally shutting down as the gate agent is asking to scan your digital boarding pass.
A worst feeling.
You just have to plug in. That brings us to method number 3, which involves a fascinating little piece of hardware. I like to think of it as a tech shield.
Yes, the USB data blocker.
What exactly is that?
This is a brilliant, highly inexpensive solution that honestly should be mandatory for anyone who travels frequently or spends a lot of time in public spaces. A USB data blocker is a very small device, usually just a tiny adapter about the size of a thumb drive.
Okay, so it's portable.
Very. And you just attach it to the end of your charging cable before you plug it into that public USB port.
Okay, so if I plug this little adapter onto my cable, how does it actually stop the attack?
Remember our multi-lane highway analogy?
The pins for power and the pins for data.
Exactly. The USB data blocker is ingeniously designed to alter that physical connection. It allows the electrical current to flow continuously and freely through the charging pins, ensuring your battery fills up. However, the adapter physically lacks the internal wiring to connect to the data pins.
Oh, wow.
It creates a hard physical barrier. It essentially neuters the cable, immediately turning it from a smart two-way data transfer cable into a dumb one-way power-only cable.
So it completely neutralizes the threat.
100%.
That public port could be entirely compromised by a hacker, loaded to the brim with malware, trying desperately to sync with my phone to steal my passwords. But the data blocker acts as an impenetrable physical wall.
Correct.
My phone gets the juice it needs, but absolutely zero information can be transferred in either direction.
It is an incredibly effective layer of self-protection. Whether you use the data blocker, stick to the standard wall outlets, or religiously carry your own hardware, these 3 methods are your personal armor.
And they apply everywhere, right?
They need to be utilized in all public areas. This isn't just a concern for international airports. We are talking about hotel lobbies, cyber cafes, waiting rooms at local businesses. Essentially anywhere the general public has unmonitored access to the charging infrastructure.
If you implement those insider tactics, you are slamming the digital door in the cybercriminal's face before they even get a chance to knock.
Oh.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What if someone listening right now is having a sudden moment of panic?
Thinking back to a recent trip.
Yeah. What if they're thinking back to a time last week or last month when they were desperate and casually plugged their phone into a public charging station at a coffee shop without a data blocker? How would you even know if your phone got infected?
That is a very real and very common concern. And the tricky part is that this attack is designed to happen completely silently in the background.
Right.
You are not going to get a Hollywood movie moment where a giant red skull flashes on your screen announcing that your data is being stolen.
Because the hackers want to stay hidden for as long as possible so they can keep harvesting your data.
Exactly.
But there have to be clues, right?
Absolutely. Because malware is essentially an unauthorized hidden program running constantly on your device.
Yeah.
It requires system resources to operate.
It needs power to run.
Precisely. And that hidden resource drain creates a very specific, noticeable checklist of performance indicators. Let's start with the physical and power signs.
What is the very first physical clue I should look for?
The most immediate sign is a sudden, inexplicable change in the device's temperature.
Heat.
Yes. If your phone is suddenly running incredibly hot to the touch, or genuinely overheating while you are just doing basic, low-effort tasks like reading a text, or even worse, when it's just sitting idle in your pocket,
That's weird.
that's a massive red flag.
Because that malicious software we talked about earlier is working overtime in the background, taxing the phone's processor without my permission.
Exactly. The processor is working frantically to execute the hacker's code, which generates physical heat. And directly tied to that overheating is incredibly fast battery drain.
Which, let's be honest, is already my absolute worst nightmare when I'm traveling, even without a hacker involved.
We all hate it.
But if I usually leave my hotel at 8 a.m. and my phone normally lasts until dinner, what does the drain look like if I am compromised?
If you are suddenly dropping from 80% battery life to 20% in a matter of 2 hours, and you haven't changed your usage habits or been watching high-definition video, something hidden is aggressively consuming that power.
Okay, so heat and rapid battery death. What about the actual performance of the phone? I imagine if the brain of the phone is busy running a keylogger, it has less brain power for the things I actually want it to do.
That is exactly the next category of symptoms. You will begin to notice the device becomes inexplicably sluggish.
Like laggy.
Very. Apps that usually snap open might take 5 or 10 seconds to load. Scrolling through a web page becomes jerky and unresponsive. Or, in more severe cases, the operating system simply cannot handle the conflicting demands and starts crashing frequently, forcing you to constantly restart the phone.
It is essentially buckling under the weight of the hidden payload.
Exactly.
Okay, those are the performance drops. But what about making actual phone calls? Is that affected?
Yes, and this is where it gets particularly insidious, because it strikes the core function of a mobile device. You need to look out for sudden communication glitches. A prime example is a massive, unexplained increase in dropped calls.
Why would malware cause my calls to drop?
And to understand that, we have to look at how the malware interacts with the phone's hardware. Advanced malware can actually interfere with something called the baseband processor.
Okay, let's break that down. What is a baseband processor?
Think of the baseband processor as your smartphone's highly specialized dedicated radio operator.
Radio operator, got it.
It is the specific microchip that is solely in charge of communicating with the cellular towers outside. If a hacker's malicious code manages to infiltrate and disrupt that radio operator, the chip gets confused. It loses its lock on the cell tower signal, which is exactly why your calls suddenly start dropping out of nowhere.
That makes perfect sense. The radio operator is compromised. Are there any other communication glitches?
You might also notice your text messages generally acting bizarrely. Messages you send might be severely delayed, or you might start receiving strange, garbled texts from unknown numbers. It's all a symptom of that compromised radio communication.
Wow. Okay, so we have heat, battery drain, sluggishness, and dropped calls. Are there any visual clues, things I can actually see happening on my screen?
Yes, visual anomalies are huge indicators. You need to make a habit of actively scrolling through your app library.
Looking for what?
If you suddenly spot unfamiliar apps, games, or utilities that you're absolutely certain you did not download appearing on your screen, that is a near certain indicator of a major compromise. The hackers have bypassed your security and are installing software remotely.
What about ads? Because sometimes I get pop-ups on websites, but how do I know if it is malicious?
There's a big difference between a website ad and malicious adware. Adware is a specific type of malware designed to bombard your system with advertisements to generate revenue for the hacker.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital billboard they have forcibly erected inside your phone. If you are suddenly seeing unexpected pop-up ads appearing on your main home screen, or popping up while you are inside your phone's basic settings menu places where you have never ever encountered ads before,
Yeah.
that is a glaring sign that adware has been injected into your system through a juice-jacking attack.
The final red flag is something that I thought was brilliant. It's a way to actively verify all these suspicions without needing to be a tech genius.
Yes, this raises an important point about being proactive. You can actively investigate by checking for data spikes. Go into your smartphone's main settings menu, find the cellular or data section, and check your data usage statistics for your system apps.
Why would my data usage go up if I've been hacked?
Because all of that incredibly personal data the hackers are stealing, your keystrokes, your passwords, your private photo gallery, your emails, it does them no good if it just sits on your phone.
Oh, they have to extract it.
Right. It has to actually be transmitted from your device over the internet back to the cybercriminal's remote server.
And securely uploading gigabytes of my personal life requires a massive amount of data bandwidth.
Precisely. It is a digital paper trail.
Yeah.
If you look at your settings and see an unexpectedly massive rate of data usage, especially if it's coming from a completely unfamiliar app or a basic app like a calculator that shouldn't require any data at all, it is a massive red flag that your information is actively being siphoned off in real time.
Okay, let's say a listener is checking their phone right now and their stomach drops. The phone is hot, the battery is dying, and they see a huge spike in data. They have been compromised. What is the immediate remediation? What do they actually do to fix it?
If you recognize these symptoms, you must take immediate action to isolate the device and remove the threat. You essentially have two main avenues for remediation.
What's the first?
The first, and often the safest if you are not tech savvy, is seeking professional help. You should take your phone into a certified professional repair center or your carrier's tech support to have it thoroughly diagnosed and wiped of any deeply embedded malware.
And the second avenue. What if I want to try and handle the remediation myself?
If you choose the DIY route, you need to immediately invest in a reputable, dedicated mobile security application that is specifically designed to detect, quarantine, and remove mobile malware.
Now, I'm sure people listening are waiting for us to just name the ultimate magical app they should download right now, but I actually appreciated that the expert advice doesn't just name drop one specific piece of software.
And that is a very intentional, smart stance.
Why is that?
The cybersecurity landscape is highly volatile and changes daily. What is considered the absolute best security app today might be completely outdated and ineffective by next month. Furthermore, listeners have entirely different smartphone operating systems. Apple's ecosystem operates very differently from Android's, and people have entirely different personal budgets.
So what is the actionable advice here? How do I find the right shield for my phone?
The best approach is to use a secure web browser, perhaps on a different uncompromised device, to search for a current up-to-date list of the top 10 mobile security apps for your specific operating system. Read the independent reviews, look closely at the features, and actively choose one that fits your personal budget and your specific technical needs.
Makes sense.
The immediate goal is to get a reputable scanner running on your device as quickly as humanly possible to root out the infection and stop the data bleed.
Because cybercriminals are absolutely relentless. They are constantly innovating, finding cheaper, easier ways to turn the simplest, most innocent infrastructure like a charging cable in a coffee shop into a weapon against us.
Which means our personal awareness and our daily habits have to evolve right alongside their tactics.
So let's bring it all together and recap this journey. Over the course of this deep dive, we have uncovered the hidden, silent dangers lurking inside public USB charging ports. We have armed you with the top 3 actionable prevention methods for the next time you're traveling in South Africa or honestly anywhere in the world.
Right.
Remember to bring your own dedicated hardware ecosystem. Always prioritize those standard dumb wall outlets over convenient USB ports. And if you are ever truly forced to plug into a public slot, always use a physical USB data blocker to neuter the cable.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of remaining vigilant, we have outlined the critical performance red flags of a device that has already been compromised.
Those are crucial.
Do not ignore a phone that is inexplicably overheating, rapidly draining its battery, suffering from major performance drops, dropping calls, displaying unfamiliar visual anomalies, or showing massive mysterious spikes in data usage. Protecting your personal data in these everyday situations must become an active priority, not an afterthought.
So what does this all mean? We have spent this deep dive thoroughly examining the hidden dangers of simply plugging our phones into public charging stations. We've mapped out exactly how a simple, everyday cable can be manipulated to betray us. But as our digital lives become even more deeply and seamlessly interwoven with the everyday infrastructure around us, think about seamlessly syncing your entire contact list and message history to a rental car's dashboard system just so you can make a quick hands-free call on vacation.
Oh, that's a whole other risk.
Or connecting your personal device to a smart TV in a hotel room just so you can stream a movie for your kids. It makes you wonder, where else might we unknowingly be plugging in our incredibly sensitive data, handing over the keys to our digital lives, just for a fleeting moment of convenience?
It is a digital landscape that requires constant, proactive vigilance. Convenience is an incredibly powerful lure for all of us, but it should never, ever come at the cost of your digital security.
A huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating and sobering world of juice jacking. Stay curious, always question the convenience of the world around you, and most importantly, stay safe out there.